Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. Citizen participation is the key to making Colorado a free state. You have the power to reach nearly every voter in your community and possibly prevent a tax hike. How do you do it? Well, Natalie Menton, the Colorado politics guru, is here to show us how. Natalie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and share more information about one of the very big benefits of the Taxpayers Bill of Rights, and that's the local TABOR notice. So, Brandon, you and I have covered before the Blue Book and the process with that one, and that's the statewide guide. But we're going to talk about here is the local one, and it really is like we've got here. It's amplifying your voice quick and easy, and starting off. There we go. All right. So first thing is just to really point out first, there's two voter guides that people will get in the mail, and it's mailed to every household that has a registered voter in it. One is the statewide ballot issue guide. So this year we're going to have Proposition HH and Proposition II. And if you want a short ballot analysis on those, vote no on the statewide issues. That's the easiest way to put it. Okay. But on top of that, there will be another mailing that will come to households where there is a TABOR related issue. Because at the local issue, it just covers TABOR items. Not to get off track, but statewide actually has things outside TABOR. But at the local level, it's just TABOR. And there's this great feature of the Taxpayers Bill of Rights, or TABOR, that citizens get to vote or submit comments to this booklet and the for or against section. And again, this notice is mailed to every household that has that TABOR related election going on. So the ability to amplify your voice and be able to participate in this booklet is of tremendous, tremendous value. It does have some challenges, especially because you and I are doing this video here with roughly 1 week to go in this deadline for this year. But it's still of value and can still easily be done. What I did here is inserted pictures just to illustrate. Blue Book has got the blue cover, so it makes it obvious, but you want to pay attention, even if you do not get involved with the pro and con statement and submitting comments, be on the lookout for election guides, as you see in the JPEGs I inserted there, that are not quite so obvious always that they contain the TABOR information. Those are actual real examples there that I screened in. And you'll see in this one, the one that's in the middle, that was actually a trifold. So it was actually easy to lose track of in a stack of mail, but it's got very valuable information in it. So be on the lookout for both of those in the case that your local has one of these elections. And most people these days are voting at home. In the old days, we had where you could request, well, actually, old days, you went to a polling station, right? And in some states, they're maybe still at that stage. But here in Colorado, we have advanced through, and pretty much at this point, almost everybody's voting at home. And to get that Blue Book or the local election notice is of great value. That's why we want people to look out for it. It comes a couple weeks before the ballot, time-wise. And it's the opportunity to talk to somebody as they're sitting there at their kitchen table. Even members of a family, I've seen events where they just have groups come together and they depend on what's in that informational booklet to make that decision. So if somebody wants to get involved with submitting to the comments section of that booklet, there's a for and against section. I don't know when I've ever participated in a for, except for statewide, which would be like tax cuts, things like that. But more often I'm on the con or against side, however they'd like to state that. And there's deadlines to submit the comments. So for this year, the best way to get all the information in any year is to go to the link at the bottom of this slide here to the Colorado Secretary of State election calendars, and you can just Google it at any point. It'll take you to a page where it's got all of the years. So upcoming one, the one we're currently in, this date I've got right here is from this year's, and it is Friday, September 22nd. It's the last day to submit these pro and con statements pertaining to the local ballot issues. Now, notable here, even though I've referenced the Secretary of State, that's not who somebody is submitting their comments to. They're submitting it to the designated election official, and that's really important. The shorthand for that is DEO. So I'm going to say that from now on because that's a lot easier. So identifying the DEO sometimes can be a challenge, but keep in mind, very important because it's a little bit odd, is that the deadline is no later than noon this Friday, that these statements need to be submitted to that DEO. So not 3 p.m., not end of business, not 11:59 p.m., by noon, and it is a really strict deadline. So the summary here that is submitted for the pro or the con is limited to 500 words. Now, it's actually somewhat often, especially in bigger elections, that more than one person might submit comments for a certain side, either for or against. What occurs in that place, in that situation, is that the designated election official by law is allowed to combine those statements so that they are no more than the 500 words. Sometimes as you're crafting your statement, you may want to keep that in mind, using more bullet points versus a long paragraph that if a big section of it is chunked out, it won't make sense. So just factor that in, that perhaps somebody else might be submitting one. And certainly if you know of other people who are opposed to the measure or even for whatever, hopefully, we're trying to kill tax hikes here. What you want to do is join up with the other people who may be up on the same side and team up together and write a statement all together. That's the best thing to do. So the DEOs in a city, let's say take a city example, it's going to likely be the city clerk. If it is a county, like the county itself election, then it's usually going to be the county clerk. In special districts, it can really get to be a challenge. There is a lot of tips at Complete Colorado, and I'm going to just skip over to that real quick and jump to some of these so we can go on. So the first is, to start with, even knowing who you need to submit any comments to, you need to know what's going to be on the ballot. Sometimes you don't always know that. And the deadlines are the notification and the calendar. If you look at the Colorado Secretary of State and look at when the local government has to make a notice to the county about the election, and then they have an intergovernmental agreement, and then finally, about a week ago, is actually when these governments had to submit the formal notice to the county. And now here it is 1 week from now, we have this deadline to submit a against statement. It makes it very challenging. And it is almost, one has to wonder, crafted by design to make it very difficult for a citizen to be able to figure out what is going to be on the ballot, because by the time they vote on it, they haven't, in a lot of cases, brought it to the public's attention. It's been a pretty hushed conversation. And frankly, people right now, they're more focused on, enjoying their summer, getting their garden harvesting done, preparing for winter, because we're already seeing the bite, in the morning, doing those kind of things. They're not necessarily focused on a 2-week span of what your local government is doing. So is that by design that they get to wait that long? Is it because, as we've seen in some cases, governments like to spend taxpayer money to run ballot issues, meaning paying for consultants, paying for printing materials and polling and all of these different things? Do they wait till the last minute so that the government announces that they're going to go on the ballot so that they can use our money for as long as they want? I mean, I'm not making these things up. I've seen them firsthand more than once. All right. So anyway, I went off track a little bit. So here, over the years, what I've done is I kind of adopted counties, and I would say, okay, these major like local counties, I have buddies and I know they're activists and they'll submit those comments. So I'll help keep track of like who's presenting what, because I know how to do this stuff. So what I would do is I would submit choras to these county election departments because they're the clearinghouse for where those local governments must like reserve a spot on the ballot for. Again, at Secretary of State, there's this calendar with the deadlines, the sequence of what they have to do. But the clearinghouse is a county election department. So what I started to do is just like I would do Douglas County, Arapahoe County, of course, Jefferson, Adams, so like metro area ones, and maybe some more higher big population centers around the state, and request from that county government, what is the list of all the local governments that have said they're going to go forward with a TABOR ballot issue? And then try to locate people who would submit those comments, because again, those people aren't even paying attention to this. Well, last year I finally did every county in Colorado. It was all 64. And it was like the biggest nightmare project I've ever done. So I am reaching out to counties of all sorts of different sizes. Some of them have, decent systems. They were responsive. The kudos to them. They were great. But other ones, like Elbert County, shame on them as of when I was doing the Cora request to get, they were, first of all, I couldn't get responses, but then they were trying to tell me just to get the list of what elections were going to occur in Elbert, they were insisting that I give evidence of photo ID. Well, by Colorado Open Records, I do not have to provide photo ID. You look at like some of these requests you have to submit, and they'll actually ask, why do you want this? And it's like, if you can fill out, it's none of your business why I want it. You've got to give me this information. So, and one day we're going to do a Cora story on the very recent little Cora battle. And by the way, we won on that one, so I didn't have to round up $1,000 to pay for a Cora. We're going to talk about that later, though. All right. So, first step: what's going to be on my ballot? Right. So back to the complete Colorado article. Sorry, I went off there. But the first thing is, if you don't know of the local election, you're not keeping like a 24/7 watch on the government, or at least looking like at the weekly agenda, or like who really wants to do that anyway, right? So you can send in a request to the your county election department and just say what local governments gave notice that they're going to be on the ballot. And at this stage, they should have all of the information. Also ask for that designated election official name. That's the conduit between that local government and the county. So they know that. Then you know who you're submitting your comments to. So that's the first thing. What's going to be on my ballot? Then preparing your for or against comments. Again, 500-word limit. Some important rules: you can't name any people or formal organizations. Don't do that. They will strike it out. They won't throw like the whole thing out, or they shouldn't, but they wouldn't print that part. There's some other rules in here. Text formatting. The counties used to be more flexible on that, allowing bullets and bold and things like that could really emphasize your statements. In the case of Jeffco, they've got more strict. I was just looking back through some old ones, because I keep all of these as good examples. Another file folder worth of government paper fighting to keep our taxes in our pockets. And anyway, with the old days, you could get away with more formatting. Now you should try it. Try to separate things. Always think of this in booklets. A lot of times your comments may get split between 2 pages. You want to be repetitive in just saying no, not overly use your space. 500 words is only so much, but no, and make sure you're saying at beginning and the ending, things like that. Those are good, just kind of publishing tips. But there's a lot of other comments here at Complete Colorado, and I don't know that I should go through all of these, but the people who submit these comments really do need to pay attention to the rules. This article is very complete and detailed and lays it out. Here's some key points that it ends with to remember. 1, must live in that political subdivision to have the comments accepted. need to include your name and your address on that statement. Way back when I was a newbie, I'm gonna hang my head, ashamed to admit that way back when, like a bazillion years ago, submitted a comment, and with another lady, Dorothy Weiscarver, a legend out here in Lakewood, a real former city councilor, wonderful woman. She's no longer with us. But we submitted a comment together and we didn't have the addresses on there. And the city clerk declined it. Even though we're regularly at city council, very obviously residents, very involved citizens, we did not follow the rules. So we did not get our comments included. And it was heartbreaking. I'll go back to that in a minute. I've even gone so far as, because the law says sign it, to include both a physical signature and also type it, just to be sure. Hand delivering it is another option, but email timestamps are pretty good. Ask for a response. The other tips in here is, I'll just kind of go along with one. You do this, assume that the other side is putting in comments also, and imagine what they're going to be saying, and you're really speaking to that voter sitting at the kitchen table and trying to counter what the proponents will say. Not really talking to the government, but talking to the voter. And to ensure again that you are repeating and bringing out points like with taxpayers' Bill of Rights issues. Is this getting rid of refunds forever? As we've talked about in previous articles, where it says, notwithstanding any other Section 10 of the Constitution or any other law, are they waiving property tax caps? Those kind of things do make a difference. And so even if you may not drill down into the details of the issue or have time for that, just looking for those key points. Are you giving away your consent over the taxpayers' Bill of Rights? That's an easy comment that you should be able to just go with that. And sometimes even maybe just one paragraph. In a complex voting world, that one paragraph may actually be more impactful than the person who used all 500 words. Don't have to necessarily do that. One other thing, this comes to people's minds occasionally, and I've experienced it from somebody doing it to us, is posing as the opposite side and putting in not so let's just say playing some shenanigans. So like when Jeffco D. Tabor, they attempted to do that on round one. The opposition, actually their campaign manager's spouse or boyfriend, I don't remember, he actually submitted the comments spoofing as us, and it backfired so big, and I got Steve Stager from 9 News to cover it. And so others who have tried it get identified. For me, I took the document and I went into the metadata on the PDF, and I could see that they were who was really the author, and it was them. So anyway, it's just best not to play the games doing that. I wouldn't suggest doing it. It comes to light. So anyway, let's go back now to the rest of the slides, because I think I probably went on pretty. Let me go back and to our PowerPoint. And people need to really read that complete Colorado article. There's a lot there I didn't go over. And if you miss out, on it, there's still ways that you can get information out. It's not the end of the world if you miss that deadline, but just for future years, pretty much think that gray book, it pretty much comes out each year, and the blue book themselves through those late summer months when people aren't really paying that much attention. So as I described, there's ways you can get the list by who's having the election. Goes back to asking a county election department if you don't know firsthand of the governments and you don't want to go through the long list. I mean, between different levels of property agencies collecting property taxes and regular governments like municipalities with sales tax, etc., you could easily have 8 or 10 governments on the list that might be, I mean, right now, this year, we know the state's coming after taking our money. And, but with local governments, you could have another 8 or 10 or who knows. So getting that complete list from the county election department is one of the ways to just take care of it all at once. And once you get that point, then getting the research on the details takes a little bit more digging, especially smaller governments. They don't post their minutes like right away. And so since they just made a decision roughly within the last 2 weeks, in a lot of cases, some of them just a week ago, I think it was September 8th was the deadline, that they were going to run something on the ballot. That's a really limited window. So they don't even post their minutes, may not be able to get video. Some counties are so small, you may not be able to get much details at all. Special districts have been a real bear. I could just go into all the stories last year when I went to put that list of all 64 together. The type of, I mean, Elbert with their, I'm arguing with their district, trying to get something from their district attorney, writing the county commissioners, tell, I am not going to give you a picture of my photo ID just for the principle. And I mean, and they were just arguing away. Smaller counties, things like, we've got all of these free open source tools. I mean, Google Sheets and Google Docs and all these different things. And they're wanting you to print out a Cora request on your printer. I mean, there's enough people I know of, I don't know how they can live like that, but they don't have a printer, right? So if you want to do a public information request, you got to go over to the library and go print something out there and then sign it and then scan it so that you could send it back to them digitally, when they could have just had, I don't know, like a Google form that you fill out, something like that to make life easier. And I understand they're small, but there are, I mean, I'm a very thrifty person. A lot of us are. There's so many different ways you can get around technology to make it a little bit easier for the citizens. It just sometimes seems like sometimes it's a little bit, they just don't care at all what the impact is to the person who may want to be actually doing their civic duty, really is what it comes down to, So anyway, I went off again, sorry. So call or email that government if you can't find the details at their website. Because again, the minutes aren't there. Maybe it was this vague agenda item, but you don't have any documents. And no, you didn't make the meeting like 10 days ago because you're getting your kids' school supplies or whatever. So anyway, call or email that government and ask them for the resolution that the board or that council passed, or whatever the governing body is. And because they've done this to me, don't let them push you around. What they'll say is, well, don't worry about it. You don't need to know about the election issues because you'll be getting your ballot in November. And then you have to go, no, here's the thing. I need to meet the September 22nd deadline. I need to know about these things now. And it's not my problem that you haven't published the details of these things on the website like a good transparent government would do, because I know you have a website. I mean, who doesn't have a website? I can say this. There was maybe one, and I think it might have been, well, can't even say that. Maybe like that one county where there's like 300 people. It's Insta. I think they still had a website. They did. So there's no excuse at all not to have these things published. And you can, get a little bit pushy is all I'm trying to say there, because I've had to do it. And honestly, sometimes they're so surprised that somebody wants to contribute to that gray book because they just really maybe don't even know about it. Maybe they're no employee, they don't know, whatever. Just, be nice, but be very forceful and don't let them push you around, because ultimately there's a deadline and they're not going to be forgiving if you submit it at 12:01 p.m. So you shouldn't be forgiving if they're going to not keep the information or provide the information in a timely manner. So now, can you make a difference? So it was really cool. Actually, this made me remember something that I had kind of forgotten about, because I have like a scrapbook of political things, and by now I forget some of the things. So anyway, the city of Lakewood, this is a real example here from November 2021. And I have to laugh when I look at this one. So city of Lakewood was having a marijuana tax, and it would have been a special tax because there's already regular tax on it. This would be a special tax because we got to tax sins, right? And when I went to go put this together, I wanted to do it in a spoofy manner. Um, and what it sums up with this one is, first of all, is an issue that's got some controversy still for it. For some, even though we've got legalized marijuana in Colorado, there's certain amount of the population that may be influenced to vote one way or the other. So when it came time to put together the pro and con statement for what was roughly, she can see in the details, about a $3 million estimated tax on marijuana just within the city of Lakewood for each year. And then that would continue to grow, assuming sales would continue to grow, which actually it's marijuana sales seem to be dropping some from what the reports I read, but they were enormous to start with. So I guess it's how you factor that in. But in this case, I was the only one to submit the against for the ballot issue. And it really was, I am actually completely pro marijuana choice. Okay. But the taxes on it, I think, are horrible. Special taxes that penalize one part of the population is not acceptable in my book. Just like the nicotine thing with Prop I that's going to be on the statewide ballot. So even though I was going to be snarky in this con statement, which it was much more snarky. I'm going to go a little bit on a rant like for them because I have to. But I was trying to tie these different things together to be able to speak to the different audience. So I'll go into that in a second. But what was the best part of this is that the pro side did not submit any comments whatsoever. And usually it's the other way. Usually it's the government will find somebody that will submit the for. And in this case, it turned out nobody had. So it was like this. It was like Christmas Day for me is what it was almost like. It was just beautiful. And so I had this really snarky one, and it was about, there were many more words in this because I think I did like 350 words, and I don't think there may be more than 200 there. I'm just guessing. But the city clerk took it upon himself, even though I was the only one to put in comments, and shorten it and abbreviate it and take out some of my snarky comments, which when I saw that published, I was ready to just flip. But he was a fairly new city clerk, so I tried to reach out reasonably and say, why did you take these sentences out? And I had things like, this will be like you'll be in your backyard and you'll be sipping coffee in your Starbucks, and you'll have this beautiful aroma of marijuana that's growing next door, just knowing that for some people, they think it's a skunky smell. So, these different things. And then he took it out, and it really, really was kind of disheartening because I thought I really had a masterpiece there, and somebody had taken basically an eraser to some very great parts to it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the ballot issue failed. And I was so sure that it was going to pass. It'd be a slam dunk. Because, typically, like syntaxes, they go through, right? And it's sad. But in this case, it failed. And so then I saw the mayor, who was the one who helped get it on the ballot. I saw him at an event, I don't know, it was like a couple weeks after that, or I think it was a couple weeks after. It was a couple weeks after he knew that my comments were in there and that their side hadn't submitted any. And he jokingly, as a friend, had some choice words for me. Let me just put it that way. Once I'm not supposed to probably share on here. Anyway, all right. So you can make impact, and sorry that was a long story, but it's very amusing. So I'm glad I had to go through these old books and refresh my memory on this. But you never know what will happen. And the main thing is to get something in. So even if it's a short something that's, this will keep TABOR refunds forever, or you waive property tax caps, or give up consent. That's a huge thing that's in TABOR or in TABOR ballot issues. Giving up that consent, which was never meant to be that way. It was meant to have a 4-year limit. So again, the deadline for doing this is Friday, September 22nd, no later than noon. And there are a lot of rules. Can ask in the, I'll have to keep eye on this, I guess, on the bottom, or you can let me know, Brandon. Ask for help if anybody needs any, but there's roughly a week to do this. It's very doable. Go to this article at Complete Colorado had a weigh in on local TABOR measures, and Sherry Pife over there and column one of the journalists also did an article because I've been doing this for I don't know a few years. So the more people we can get involved, we can ensure that things like no, this is what occurs when you don't submit something. It's this little spot that says no statements were submitted by the constitutional deadline. And what that does is increases that tax hike has a far greater chance of going through. And I think like the example there of the marijuana, just never know. So it's better to get something in, wing it, do the best that you can, and see if you can make a difference. I got to say, I'm pretty proud that I feel like I saved the taxpayers $2.9 million just because I wrote 350 words. That's
That is
like gold.
awesome. That is gold.
There's
That is a great
probably
return on
other
investment.
there's probably some other factors, but I want to take credit for all of it.
That is awesome, Natalie. Yeah, very inspiring. And I mean, this is a quick and easy tool, as you said at the very beginning. I mean, it is the low-hanging fruit. And people, I really encourage you, in this last little bit here before September 22nd at noon, find out what's going on in your local community, get these comments in there, and you can make a difference. I mean, you could save millions of dollars for your community. This can make the difference between something passing or not. And we got to empower citizens and take some of our money back from the government that keeps taking it every chance they get. So that was amazing, Natalie. I think this is very valuable information for people for years to come. This election and going forward, this is something that the Liberty community really needs to keep an eye on. And how great would it be to see local Liberty activist groups in all 64 counties across Colorado consistently doing this every year? I mean, that would be one of the great ways to really help our state be a freer place. That's for sure.
Well, it would be if we had county leaders who just, would take it. It's really not difficult when you take it in those little pieces. I mean, doing all 64 was like, I don't know, felt like Mount Everest or something with the challenges, but just breaking into 64, it's not that tough. It really can make a difference. And I had fun doing this one. It revived some old good memories.
Awesome. Well, and I'll link, of course, for anybody watching this on YouTube or Odyssey or Telegram or Twitter, wherever you're at, Facebook, on freestatecolorado.com. If you find the post for this video, this particular topic, you'll see that link to that Complete Colorado article and any other pertinent information there. So you can always go to freestatecolorado.com to find any of the links that we discuss on any of these videos.
That sounds good.
Awesome. Any parting words, Natalie?
Let's go fight them.
Let's go fight them. Let's keep our money in our pockets and don't let them take it.
Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. Don't give up consent. That's right.
Awesome. Well, perfect, Natalie. Well, I really appreciate all your hard work. It's amazing that you've been doing this for years. And hopefully now that there's a template out there with these videos and the articles you've been consistently doing for these years as well, for people to be able to do this themselves and just access this information, and the future's looking bright.
Yes, I hope so. I hope people learned a lot and give it a try.
Awesome. All right, Natalie, we'll take care. We'll see you next time.